welcome back to Let's Create with Alex Blake. I'm your host, Alex Blake, and today we have a guest on the pod. This is Summer Grace. Summer, say hey.
Hello, everyone.
If you guys don't know Summer, she is like the cutest little thing. If you're not watching on YouTube, I just need you to pop over to YouTube and watch because she has the cutest haircut, guys.
Stop.
She's like a little pixie fairy girl.
Oh, thank you.
Summer, introduce yourself. Tell everybody who you are, what you do, all the fun things.
Yeah. My name's Summer Grace. You can call me Summer. I don't know, or both. It doesn't matter. I currently live in LA. Say currently, I'm from Georgia. I've lived in Oregon. I've lived in Washington.
Wait, you're from Georgia?
Yes, from the
I'm
South.
from Georgia.
Ooh, where are you from?
From Lawrenceville, Swanee area?
I'm from Canton.
Oh, okay.
Canton, Georgia. Yep. Originally from Canton, Georgia. Moved out to the West Coast at like 18. So I've kind of been out here like my whole adulthood. And it's been a blast. I shoot weddings. I kind of forgot. I'm like, Alex, you shoot weddings, like some, but it's not your main thing.
Yeah.
I shoot mostly only weddings, maybe a little bit of like editorial fashion more for fun. And I teach wedding photographers. So I have a podcast. We have a coaching program, sell presets, all the things. That's probably equally as much or more of my life than shooting weddings right now, in my mind at least. You know what I mean? I'm currently pregnant.
Woohoo!
And yeah, expecting a baby by like the winter, December.
Oh my gosh.
Hopefully. I don't want it to wait.
Long then, yeah.
Yeah, I'm
so
like
exciting.
24-ish weeks. So I think
Okay.
like our last wedding is October 12th. I'll be like 32 weeks pregnant.
That's so exciting.
So I travel for most all of my work for anyone listening, mostly shoot kind of all over the United States. And so, yeah, we're cutting weddings pretty early, which means I'll also have like 2 months to like get ready, which is fun.
That's so smart to do that too, though. I think I'll probably do that one day when I'm pregnant too. Just kind of cool it quits a little bit earlier so you can just like nest, you know?
Well, no, I've heard of a lot of people, even I think Nathan Chansky, his wife, ended up giving birth 34 weeks. Like, yeah. I've heard of a lot of people like accidentally giving birth early. I don't want to be doing that on someone's wedding, you know?
Oh my gosh, could you
Too
imagine?
big of a risk. Too big of a risk. Yeah.
That would be wild. So you said you travel around a lot. Where's your favorite place to shoot?
You know, I actually really like California. We didn't move here on purpose. I mean, we moved here on purpose. We didn't move here like planned in advance. There was no plan. Just randomly, we were like, let's move to LA after we get married. So we drove from our wedding to LA, stayed in a hotel until we found an apartment to rent. And then my husband went back to Seattle and grabbed all of our things by himself.
What?
So Wait, now
you have got to like elaborate on this story. When did you guys get married?
Oh, we got married October.
Okay. Like this past, like last year?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Okay.
I know.
This is all like really new.
I know. We didn't honeymoon because we were like, well, we're literally like driving to LA. And then we honeymooned in March. And I think that was when we accidentally got pregnant. So here we are. Now we're pregnant. It was not the plan to like married pregnant. Like I'm from the South. That happens with a lot of people. That was not my 5-year plan, but that's okay. And I'm sure it'll be a fun journey of business and motherhood. But in the beginning, it was definitely like terrifying. None of this was planned, but that's just kind of how I live my life, I guess. I don't know. I've moved a lot and I'm ready to kind of stop moving, which maybe the child will, you know, that'll cause us to settle down some. We moved to like a really hip, cool side of LA initially and just into a furnished apartment. We sold Jake just got rid of all our furniture. All he moved us down with was like our clothes and stuff. And he's a musician. So it's kind of for him in his career. Like I just told him, I was like, well, I can keep the wedding business alive in LA as easily as I could in Seattle. If anything, there's more work to be had in California, especially in the price range I was kind of in and embarking into. There's less of that in the PNW. It's not that it doesn't exist. It's just not super common to have really nice weddings. Really outdoorsy weddings are more common, you know? Yeah. And so I was like, well, I could make this work in California. Let's just go. So we got married in Vegas with just like 12 family members, like 10 family members and us in like an Airbnb.
So fun.
Little neon pink heart chapel, like simple, fun wedding. Because we lived together for like 2 years. He was already working full time with me, shared bank account, all the things pre-wedding. Yeah. So we were like, let's just get married. So we did it. It was super fun. Kind of felt more like Palm Springs, like, you know, rent an Airbnb with a pool, get married,
That's so
have
fun.
everyone stay at the same Airbnb. Like we like had all of our family just stay with us at this big Airbnb with a pool. It was fun. And yeah, then we drove from there to LA and literally just stayed in like a motel in Hollywood until we signed a lease somewhere.
That is the most adventurous wedding story I've ever heard.
Oh, I don't even think of it as like our wedding story. And then I think about it and I'm like, oh yeah, that was like
Oh, yeah,
from our
that's, like, the
wedding.
start of our family.
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
amazing, though. Okay, so you feel like you're ready to settle down. Do you think LA is kind of that place for you, or do you think eventually you'll settle down somewhere else?
I think the words settle down are very terrifying for someone like me, but settle in the sense of just like being in the same place for at least more than like a year and a half.
Okay.
Um,
So more like stable,
s-
like
LOL.
stability.
Yeah, you know?
Sure.
I actually never really marketed locally, which I think is what got a lot of travel work. No one really, people that knew me or followed me really intensely would know I lived in Washington, but a lot of
Mm,
people didn't know where I lived. And I kind of used that to my advantage because
that's cool.
for me, I think too, when my following kind of grew, and I hate talking about it like that, but like when it grew too, there was this weird shift of like, I don't really want people to know where I live. It was like
Yeah,
this interesting. And so I started more in the elopement space, kind of travel stuff,
cool.
anyways. And so with all that, just was a perfect storm of really shooting lots of like travel or destination type weddings inside of the US because, COVID.
Mhm.
And yeah, so it was kind of like this perfect storm of me not needing to have a local base and never feeling like I needed that. Whereas I think almost
That's
any wedding
cool.
photographer listening, or even most photographers, they probably only work locally and are like, oh, how do you get
Yeah,
someone to pay your flight? Or if they do travel, they started locally and then they traveled. For me, it was
yeah.
like travel. And now I'm like, oh, it'd be really cool to like work 30 minutes from my house. Like, wouldn't that
That
be
would be
cool?
awesome.
Yeah, haven't done that before.
That is so
So,
funny.
yeah, when you said where do I want to shoot, honestly, California has like in LA, I could get to any scenery similar to Seattle. In Seattle, you can get
Yeah,
to any scenery within probably within 4 hours. You can get to the desert, you can get to the forest, you can
so
get,
cool.
and same with LA. You can get to the desert, you can get to the mountains, you can get to the ocean. Like you can get to anything within like 2 to 4 hours. And honestly, probably even sooner than I could have in Washington. In Washington, it's like, deep forest roads. It takes you
Yeah.
forever. Everyone's shooting these mountains, but it takes you like 4 hours to get to them. So my life was like driving 4 hours for these outdoor engagement shoots and like 4 hours back is like 8 hours on the road, 3 hours shooting. It was
Yeah. It's
crazy, you know?
exhausting. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So, yeah, when I did work in Washington, it was mostly couples traveling to the PNW and being like, "Oh, we want a PNW photographer. We want to go to like Cannon
Mm,
Beach or like to the like iconic like nature spots
yeah.
there." So I was also going to the same place all the time. So I'm like, I'm kind of ready to be like a LA photographer and just like shoot all throughout the city and
Yeah.
just like have some fun and not have to drive like 4 hours for everything. I don't know, you know?
Yeah. Well, and
Yeah.
I'm sure that part of that is going to be like motherhood too. It's a little bit harder. Not that it's not impossible to travel with a baby. You just pack them up and travel with them. But at the same time, it changes things too.
Oh,
And so being
yes.
home with a child is different too, I'm sure. But I do want to ask you because you were talking about how you didn't really market locally. Do you have any tips for anyone listening who's like, oh, that's actually a really good idea? I would love to maybe open up to more destination stuff or, travel elopements or anything like that.
Yeah. In the beginning, for me, especially, a lot of it came because of me also just kind of sharing that I was doing that. Like, I really feel like what you put into your marketing, whether it's on your website or through your SEO or it's on your Instagram, for me, it was Instagram. What you put on there really does like show what you want to book and like the kind of things you want to book. So, if you want to
Yeah.
shoot travel destination and you're only posting like local fields, no one's going to assume that of you or book you for it. You know what I mean? But
Right.
there's a ton of people who don't bat an eye to hiring someone from the other side of the country or from the other side of the world, you know?
Yeah.
Like, I think sometimes it's within us that we have this limiting mindset or belief that, oh, someone's not going to want to pay my flight. And I'm like, there's so many people that don't even think to hire a local photographer. They're like, oh, I want this
Yeah.
person and I'm going to fly them out. And if they want you and you clearly live across the in another state, they're gonna understand that they should pay for all of that. You know what I mean? It's not
Right.
gonna be a
Right.
shock when you bill them for that. So definitely just kind of like put it out there. If you don't have any work showing that, travel and visit a friend that lives in some of those places that you'd want to shoot in. Just like schedule your own trip and go do some styled shoots. I on like no money. I quit my job, but a chain of events happened where I like basically had nowhere to live. And when I went full time, I like basically had nowhere to live, had no inquiries. I
My
basically was
gosh.
like, I'm going to be a wedding photographer, and like had only shot 2 weddings, like second shooting. And I was like, well, I'm going to shoot elopements. And so I just quit my job. And yeah, had like,
Summer, our personalities are so complete opposite. It's hilarious.
oh, but this
I am
story,
like the most planner. Like I need to have all my ducks in a row before I make a decision.
I
And
moved
you're like
like,
on a whim.
moved across the country, like unplanned. But
I love it.
the story of how I went full time, I think, is even more chaotic, which is hilarious. But
Tell it. Let us in on all the
so
deets.
I was working for like a nonprofit as a communications director, and this was in Oregon. And I was dating someone, and we thought about maybe getting married. I don't know. And I was like, well, I'm being hosted kind of like foreign exchange student for like $200 a month by this awesome family. And so I was like, well, I met this elopement photographer because me and this ex modeled for her. And she was like, Summer, you should be an elopement photographer. And I was like, what's an elopement? Like Vegas? Like, what are you talking about? You know what I mean? I didn't, before COVID, it's like,
Right.
it wasn't super popular in like the world it was popular in. I didn't know that, you know?
Yeah.
And she was like, I just made like 12 grand to like hike overnight with a couple in their wedding attire. I was like, deal. I got to figure out how to quit my job, you know? And so for like 3 months, I would like thrift dresses and like take people to waterfalls and just like hit up random strangers and like
Oh my
build this
gosh.
portfolio of
Did
elopement
you have a
stuff.
camera at that time?
Yeah, like I was doing like media, like communications director. So I had been shooting for like years. So
Oh
I
my
knew what I
gosh.
was doing. I
Okay.
just didn't know weddings. You know what I mean? And so um yeah, I probably for like 3 months just kind of like was traveling and trying to shoot as much as I could, like outside on my like my nonprofit salary job that was not, you know, it was like, I don't know, like part-time 20 an hour or something, you know, just like
Yeah.
classic like 18-year-old job. And I was like, well, my job, I don't love it. I'm going to quit my job and I'm just going to do this. And I hadn't had a booking really, you know, like I don't think I
That is
had
so
anything
funny.
scheduled, but I was like, well, I can be an elopement photographer. Duh. Um, so yeah, quit my job. That guy kind of played into that. Like, oh, I need to be able to like, our jobs weren't aligning. Like I need, you know, things like that. And so, yeah, but I quit my job. We then broke up. I then got given the dog that we had gotten together. It was like his dog, but gave it to me. So I couldn't live at the home I was living at because they didn't allow dogs. So it was either give up
Oh.
the dog or move. And I had no money, nowhere to live, uh, no salary
Oh my
job.
gosh.
And I was like, well, this is fine. I'm gonna figure it out.
Everything's great.
I got the dog fostered for like 2 weeks while I found somewhere to live.
Yeah.
And I found a tiny home to live in for like $500 a month. And just started like trying to book some shoots and all of this through social media, and postmated for like 30 days and built like a savings account. And I swear I traveled. When I'm telling you like manifest this, like I went down the whole West Coast on my like black bean burger hot plate budget. Like,
Oh my gosh.
and within like maybe 3 to 6 months max, I had the money to like move to Seattle and like get an apartment.
Aw.
And it was crazy. My whole life changed. I like hosted a retreat like 9 months later that like sold out
Wow.
from all across the United States. Like, and I was like, my hair's short now. This was years ago, but I cut my hair because the shower in the tiny home only lasted like 3 minutes.
Oh my gosh.
It was like a composting toilet, you know, all the things, but they would watch the dog while I'd travel. And so I really just like somehow made it work.
Yeah.
It was
Well,
crazy.
you set your mind to it and you're like, this is what I'm going to do. So I'm going to work
Yeah.
really hard and make it happen.
Posted every day for like a year. Um,
Wow.
And I mean, social media was like what I was going to college for. So I did have that advantage in some ways
Cool.
of like seeing it more as something to do than something to be scared of.
Yeah.
And I think that's what limits like a lot of people is like the anxiety and fear around like perception. And so since it was something I like had experience in going to like school for, since I was going to initially finish my degree in like social network marketing with a half studio art. It was basically art marketing. So it would have been half
Yeah.
social media, half photography. And so what I'm doing now. But that was like what I was hoping to finish a degree in. But then when I moved to the West Coast, I just never went home. That's another story. I only went with like a suitcase and then I just never came back.
Oh
I didn't
my
have like,
gosh.
I went for like a 2-month internship and then I was like, yeah, I don't think I should come home. I didn't have my car. All my stuff was still in my like house that I was living in college. Like my parents
That
had to
is
go get my stuff from
hilarious.
my college town and get it out of the house for me.
Were your parents like, this is typical summer? Like, yeah, this makes sense.
I was so young and they had already lost my brother to Oregon that
Oh,
I think they were kind of like, "Oh no, not
not
another one."
another.
But now they're so proud and they know
Yeah.
that they probably would never live in California, but they're excited to visit in the side of
Yeah.
town we are like settling down, LOL. The side of town we moved to once we found out we were pregnant is like very safe and flat and like family friendly neighborhood. And my
Sure.
mom actually, when she visited, said, "This feels safer than my neighborhood." And I'm like, "Sylvia, you live in a small neighborhood in a small town in Georgia. There's no way."
Like, I don't think
But
so.
I'm glad that you feel that way here because I want them to want to visit and like feel comfortable, you know?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's special. Well, that's really cool. You said you just kind of like posted consistently on social media and then made it work.
And that sounds so unrelatable, so I don't mean it that way. But definitely, if you want to travel, you need to show travel stuff, even if you're not traveling for
Yeah.
photography. If you're on
Yeah.
a plane, pretend you're traveling for photography.
Yeah.
Share it everywhere. If social media is not your thing, on SEO, I've had friends do wonders, like
Hmm.
blogging about Ireland, and then they book Ireland because they wrote like a blog about where they would
Yeah.
get married in Ireland, but they didn't take photos in Ireland. Like you can, there's ways to like show that you want to do destination things without actually doing them. Or if
Right.
you are doing them or in a place that you love travel and so you just want to go camping every weekend, like just show that. You know what I
Yeah.
mean?
Something unique now too is that social media like TikTok and Instagram are also SEO based. And so
Mm-hmm.
like something pretty unique to me, and a lot of the people that listen to this know this, but being in Charleston, I have a lot of destination people who come to me. Right. So it's a little bit different because
Yeah.
I have to market to people who are not in my area looking for people in my area, which is an interesting thing. But I rarely tag Charleston like in the location of a post or a reel because it kind of tends to stick in the Charleston area. But
Mm.
when I just put no location on it, it opens it up a little bit. And in my caption, I'll put like, Folly Beach, Charleston photographer, Charleston senior photographer, that sort of stuff, like the SEO in my caption. But maybe that's a good option to try too for somebody who's like really wanting to book something in, I don't know why, but Delaware was in my head.
Yeah.
Sure, if somebody wants to book something in Delaware or
No,
Oregon or any of the like, cool places. Is
back
Delaware
in
cool? I haven't been there.
Delaware could be cool.
Sure.
Back when like hashtags worked more, I would hashtag other places that were not where I
Yeah.
lived. Again, like no one, maybe some people knew where they knew I lived in the PNW, but even then
Yeah.
it's like the PNW is huge.
Right.
And so people were coming to me as a PNW photographer. So I didn't charge for travel if I was going like 4 hours away because I was advertising everywhere. And I know it's my own
Sure.
choice to do that. But
Yeah.
I also didn't want to shoot just like Tacoma or Seattle weddings, you know.
Yeah.
But one thing I did was one time I would hashtag like all sorts of things, like destination wedding photographer, California, whatever. I would hashtag all these other places that I didn't live in. Doesn't matter.
Yeah.
And one time I hashtagged like Hawaii to like test it out. And then like the next day I had an inquiry for Hawaii. I was like, hmm.
So there you go.
And one time I asked one, I was like, how did you find me? This was back in the day.
Yeah.
But they were like, hashtag PNW elopement photographer. This was one of my first clients, okay?
That's so funny.
And I was like, what are the odds? That's such a niche. Like, why did I hashtag that in the first place?
But it
But
worked.
it's worth it. When people say
Yeah.
like hashtags are dead, I'm like, it's just one more thing you can do to give yourself more
Yeah.
potential. If you're going to post, you might as well do it,
Yeah.
you know?
I use hashtags. I don't know that they're honestly getting me anything, but I have them on there just in case because, like, why would I not? But I
I think
also
they
think,
work.
like, I mean, I think so too because I use them, you know? But I also think, like, where people might not as much put like a hashtag in front of PNW elopement photographer, they are searching that. they'll
Mhm.
just use the spaces and won't use a hashtag.
Yeah.
And so that's where it's like the keywords come in. So I use both. I use keywords and then hashtags. And I use like an absurd amount. Preston, we have a mutual friend, Preston. He was on the podcast a couple weeks ago, but he always makes fun of me. He's like, you just need a couple. And I'm like, no, I'm throwing them all on there and
You're like,
seeing what
"You just
happens.
need a couple,
I know,
Preston."
Preston with like, I don't know how many he has now, 750,
Um,
100K.
no, I talk about when I give social media classes and stuff, like Instagram as a search engine. And I
Hmm.
think people, when they think SEO, they only think Google, but like Instagram literally is a search engine. You type
Right,
something and you can search it. And
right.
I've had people search things that I've been trying to make it into. One time I was like, yeah, like search LA wedding photographer. I did not think I'd actually show up. I showed up for everyone in like my coaching program. And I was like, see, hashtags
It
work. And like
works.
putting things in your bio or putting it in
Yeah,
your words or in your locations. It's like you're just search engine optimization. You're just optimizing your account to be searchable. Like there's
yeah,
nothing wrong with that. And
yeah,
so even if someone might not be searching hashtag LA wedding photographer, if they search LA wedding photographer and you have that hashtag, give it in your bio, or all these things, you are so much more likely to show up right
yeah,
there. You can't make yourself show up there, but you are like that much more likely. And I mean, we moved to LA less than a year ago and we get so many LA stuff already. Like
yeah.
all the time. And I'm like, that's crazy because I never visited California before we moved here. I visited once and we were like, oh, let's move here.
That
Um,
is crazy.
and it was like 2 months before we moved here. So like I didn't have this portfolio where most people would say, oh, like plan it and go there and work there and meet vendors, all these
Yeah,
things. But even at the moment we decided to move here, I was like, hashtag LA wedding photographer, hashtag,
yep.
and that stuff works, man.
Yeah, it's so funny because, like, you don't think that you can just pick up and move somewhere, but in a different way, because I very much planned my move. Moving to Charleston from Georgia for me, because of like the nature of our move, I couldn't share that we were moving until it was like
Mm,
time. And so I couldn't on social media do that and like prepare in that way, even though I like wanted to. And so as soon as we moved, of course, I did the same thing as you, hashtags and keywords and reels talking about Charleston and all of that
yeah.
kind of stuff. And it works. But like, you don't have to plan as much as you think you do. You can just like go for it once it's time and see what happens.
Yeah. And you can
I
still
love it.
meet people and stuff. I think at the end of the day, it'll take some time, whether you visit 5 times or not. Maybe it's more worth your money to stay home and just make reels about it than it
Yeah.
is to like fly there 5 times and try and set up these elaborate shoots.
Yeah. That is true. One thing that I did, though, I will caution people with this if you're ever, this wasn't even what we were going to talk about today. So this is
We're
kind of
just
so funny.
going.
We're just talking about moving. But one of the things that I did that was, I look back on it and think maybe a mistake. I was just tagging the location before I moved, like tagging my location as Charleston for everything. And then I was
Mm,
having people reach out to me asking me where this location was because they really liked it.
mm.
And that was a hard part because then I was like, oh, that's actually Georgia. Or one of them was like, I don't know why I did this, but I did the Salt Flats in Utah. And I'm like, Charleston.
Oh,
But I
yeah.
wasn't meaning to be deceitful in that. But then when people asked me and it wasn't actually Charleston, I never want to come across like I was being deceitful with my posts or anything like that. So you just have to be careful about the perception of things too.
I think in hashtags, people understand that doesn't mean that you shot it in that place. But I feel like if
Right.
the location, they'll be like, oh, that was
Yes.
Charleston? Wow, where was that?
Exactly. So that
Yeah.
was maybe a little mistake that I made. And I mean, obviously it's fine. No one actually cares, but
Yeah.
I like to have trust as a big thing with my clients and that kind of felt like, "Oh, okay, maybe I did that wrong a little bit." And I went back on it, but anyway,
Yeah.
okay, let's move on because I have so many questions for you.
Yes, yes.
But one of them, I know you were talking about weddings earlier, and we were kind of talking about this a little bit before even pressing record. So I'd love to hear more about this. But I heard one of your podcast episodes, and you were talking about, I mean, I've heard many, but in this one, you were talking about kind of moving away from seeking out luxury weddings. Like if they come to you, that's fine, but you're not really going to like seek them out. Can you share a little bit more about like the why behind why you made that shift?
Yeah. I mean, this is something almost like personal and in a business sense. So when we moved to LA, I was in a place with like a good following, like in the 90,000s. And that brings work. Yes. That brings lots of work, but it doesn't always bring very high qualifying leads if we're talking like
Mm.
numbers.
Yeah.
And so outside of money, there was also this, I feel like, pressure as an educator that
Mm.
I wasn't shooting this like certain kind of wedding, this like certain level. Like I wasn't in the luxury wedding space, and that's where the best wedding photographers are, was how I felt. I'm not saying anyone meant to make me feel this way.
Yeah.
I just think in the wedding space, when you get near that, it can make a lot of people feel that way, like they're not a good enough wedding photographer if they're not shooting like $1 million weddings.
Mm.
And I kind of feel bad that I let myself kind of fall into that, because I've normally, my whole career, I've never cared like about what anyone thinks. I've kind of just like carved my own path, moved, done whatever I wanted. Like that was what made me who I was. And I think
Yeah.
that was what made people also fall in love with my work and who I was. You know what I mean? Was that I
Yeah.
didn't care. I would post random weird fashion stuff and self portraits that didn't make sense with wedding photography while being a wedding photographer. You know, it's like
Yeah.
these things that didn't go together. And I think that drew people to me. But then in the educational space specifically, I think that was where it affected me more of like, oh, am I not actually like a good enough wedding photographer or something? Like it was
Mm.
this questioning only because of the kind of weddings I was shooting, which I was still shooting really nice weddings. Like they weren't like it
Yeah.
wasn't, but it was not, you know, we're talking luxury weddings. So for anyone listening that maybe isn't a wedding photographer, there's like kind of normal weddings, and even normal would be really nice for a lot of people. And normal, you have like mid luxury and then like luxury. There's like 20 million categories they'll put in between those, but from what I can understand of it, luxury is really like closer to like the $1 million mark of budget and higher. And then mid luxury would be maybe like, it's hard for me to even say this because I don't even know, but maybe like in the three to $500,000 budget, maybe higher, maybe lower, but really big details, pretty large vendor teams. And then I think there's something called Lovely, which is like the in between, like the 75 to
Mm.
200, which is still like an expensive wedding, but it's
Yeah.
not technically luxury. I don't know, whatever.
Yeah.
And then like normal weddings, anything like up to like 50 grand, whatever. And for a lot of people, like a $50,000 wedding would still be a very nice wedding, you know?
Yeah.
So I was shooting normal to like lovely weddings, you know, would hit $100,000 budgets. So some nice weddings with planners, but it wasn't like a crazy wedding, you know?
Yeah.
And that pressure kind of hit probably with the move to California and me getting more into the in person space of educating. And I was kind of on this like in person networking grind. But I also was like, man, where do I want to go with my business? And I was trying to think longevity because it's something
Yeah.
I am passionate about. Shooting, so charging, if I was only charging maybe $5,000 to $7,000 a wedding, which for a lot of people, you're probably like, wow, I would love to charge $5,000 to $7,000.
Yeah.
Say I was only charging that to make a livable income that supports both me and my husband, I would need to shoot at least like 30 weddings a year or more,
Mm.
especially after expenses and just all the things. And for me, that was just unrealistic with flying for all of them. I did that 3 years ago. We shot almost 40 weddings like 2 years
Wow.
ago, like leading up to our wedding. And we shot almost 40 weddings. They were very
That's wild.
nice. They were still like nice, but we also had associates. So it was like, I think I shot in the 30 to 35 range. My associate shot a couple. And they were mostly all travel. So I was on a plane like every weekend. I had no
Yeah.
friends because I had no life because all I was doing was shooting, which for so many people would be a dream. But for me, I was just like, this isn't sustainable. This is why wedding photographers only last like 3 to 5 years,
Right.
because this part of my life is not like, yes, I'm making money and I'm able to live off my career and support both me and my husband. That's incredible.
Yeah.
But this isn't like life.
Yeah.
This isn't the life I wanted, you know? And so my thoughts were, obviously there is money in educating, like teaching other photographers. I was already doing that. But it wasn't, I was doing it also because I loved it. I wasn't like
Right.
making it this like super profitable thing, you know? And then the luxury space. So raising my prices. And I was like, well, if I'm going to raise my prices above that 8 to 12 mark, something has to shift with who I work with. You know, it can't be these Instagram, it's not that
Yeah.
it can't be Instagram clients, but like it probably won't be. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so outside of kind of that weird pressure I told you I was feeling, which I hate that I felt that, and no one should feel that ever. You
Yeah.
do not have to shoot $1 million weddings to be a talented wedding photographer.
Right.
So stupid.
That's just imposter syndrome speaking.
Literally. And so yeah, outside of that, it was just the financial thing. I was like, well, if
Yeah.
I could do maybe 10, I'm being so honest with you guys about my finances, but maybe like 10 to 15 over $10,000 weddings, then whatever I make on educating on the side is awesome. I don't have to like worry about things and everything will be good. Basically, it was like
Yeah.
my mindset, you know? And I
Yeah.
was like, well, how do I do that? I branch into the luxury space, at least a little, you know?
Yeah.
In Seattle, you weren't going to charge much more than 8 without that. And so I was like, well, how do I do that? So I was trying to figure that out. And a lot of it is like in-person networking, which I'm still so passionate about. I think everyone should do it. It was taught me so much. The one thing I tell people when they say like, if you could have changed one thing in your career, what would you have done? And I was like, I would have networked better in person in the beginning.
Mm-hmm.
I would have just networked better with like wedding vendors. Like I knew a ton of photographers. I've met like 100 photographers my first 6
Yeah.
months full time. But I didn't really know vendors because I didn't
Yeah.
understand why it was important. Like that connect wasn't there for me coming from the elopement space. No one really made me aware of that. You know what I mean? And so, yeah, I went to so many events. I went to like an insane luxury like networking event that was super awesome called Kindred. Like I really poured all my eggs into this basket, but I ended up realizing like I just don't think it was my answer. I
Mm-hmm.
like nice things and I love fashion, so that side of those weddings I really like. Like I
Yeah.
love fashion, so the fashion editorial side of it I think is awesome, but I do not need to shoot that level to be talented. And I do enjoy that level when it comes, but I also don't want to sacrifice any part of who I am to be in that level. And I think sometimes there is some of that. And I think the I was unaware because of how everyone made it sound that in that space those vendors are particularly very well off and very
Mm-hmm.
secure. I just one day had the epiphany of, I gave Alex this analogy earlier. I was like, okay, yeah, they do 10, $30,000 weddings. I asked someone once, okay, you book a $30,000 gig. How much are you bringing home? She was like, maybe 12. And I was like, I can do that by myself with my really cool vintage weird couples having 80-person
Yep.
backyard weddings. And I was like, so I don't know if this is like really making a ton of sense. And so there's nothing wrong with all my luxury vendor friends or the people that are in that space because I still will take those clients as well. And I have those clients as well.
Yeah.
But I also have normal clients and I don't feel the need to go ultra luxe. Like if I were
Yeah.
to book something like that, cool, I can wrangle a huge team. And I think I actually do have a gift in like directing as much as photography. So
Cool.
I think I would enjoy it. Like I would enjoy at that level. I wouldn't be taking as much of the photos. I'd probably be directing a team more so. And I do think I'd be really skilled in that. And I think it'd be really fun. But it is not the only way to make a livable income. It's not the only
Right.
way to make a sustainable income. And I think it just felt as though everyone like made it seem like this is how you achieve these
Yeah.
nice things and this level of success. And I
Yeah.
realized like, okay, someone shooting 20 weddings at like $5,000 could be making the same money as someone shooting $1 million weddings. You know, it's
Yeah.
just like they just flaunt those. What I don't know. It just feels some of it feels a little fake, and I'm just gonna say it, but not all of it is. And some of the people I've met are really amazing.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, it's just this interesting, like, who I am as a person, I don't think fully aligns with all of that side of the industry.
Yeah.
But there are some incredible, like, new wave side of that industry that I think are so cool. And I just think I like teaching and like doing things like this a
Yeah.
lot more. And I'm fine, like, teaching and making presets and doing all these things that are like supplemental income to where I can just work with clients I like
Yeah.
really resonate with and connect with in like a deep interpersonal level.
I love that.
So yeah, I don't know. That was such a long answer, but
No, I'm
I feel
so
like
glad you went there though.
it
It
kind
was
of like
so good.
explained things for people.
Yeah.
And there's nothing technically wrong with being a luxury vendor. I think it's
Yeah.
rad. And I think it's a really fun space to try and make it in because it is a lot of just in-person connections. So if you're an extrovert like me, it can be really enjoyable. I was telling Alex earlier, I went to like so many like black tie events this winter. And honest, she was like, I don't know if I'd enjoy that. And I was like, well, it's all with wedding professionals. So it's all with people like you. It's not with
Yeah.
like the clients, you know? And so it's kind of fun to just like get dressed up. And when as an
Yeah.
adult, are you wearing like a black tie dress, you know?
It's so
It's a
funny
fun
because, like,
time.
the reason I would hate it is because I just want to be in overalls. Like, I want to be barefoot on the beach, like bathing suit and overalls on them, you know? Like,
Yeah, I went from like hiking trails with couples to like black tie,
so funny.
like huge black tie events. It's definitely
Which is fun. It's fun, but I wouldn't want to do it all the time. I would just like to clarify
yeah,
that.
yeah. No, yeah. But yeah, so I think probably the episode you were listening to was probably my Q&A, and I was kind of like, oh, all you guys kind of know that I was really pushing into this, and like screw
Yeah.
this was like kind of how I said it.
Yeah.
And so this time I explained a lot more for your listeners than I did
I
in my
love
own
it. Yeah.
podcast. But I
Yeah.
just think
Well,
like you don't have to shoot those weddings to make a sustainable income, you
yeah.
know?
Yeah. One thing I do want to ask you, and it's okay if you don't want to like super go there, so just say it and everybody will understand. But as far as your pricing goes, one of the things that you were saying was like, you can take a couple a year if you want to, luxury weddings, and then, just kind of your normal typical weddings as well are the ones that you enjoy most of the time, but blah, 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 blah. All that to say, do you custom price for your clients? And if so,
Yeah.
how is all
So
of that structured?
especially in the luxury space in general in the wedding industry, most all of that is completely custom. Like you don't even see their prices on their website. Like if
Mm-hmm.
you stalk a luxury wedding photographer, you can't even find a starting price. And I don't like that because that just stresses me out too much. I don't want someone
Yeah.
inquiring that only is $3,000 and me having to go through the time to decline them, you
Yeah.
know? So I do have my starting prices on my site. They start at like 10 grand right now, but we still like say we get an inquiry that's like, hey, I don't know. Like, I'm willing, if it's something I really want to shoot, to
Yeah.
make them a custom package that I'm still making the income I would want that fits within their budget. So, for an
Mhm.
example, I had this client inquire. They live in LA, so it's local. And, well, it's like out towards Joshua Tree. So, it's local to me compared to not having to fly.
Right.
And they're getting married in March, which would be one of my first weddings back postpartum. So, I was kind of like, oh, that'd be fun. Like, get out of town, but like not far away. And, they met at Burning Man and they're having kind of like Burning Man wedding. Like he designed sculptures. And so it's going to be this like
What?
really kind of like hippie art, like eclectic
That's
wedding.
cool.
And they're like, our budget was like 6 or something. And I was like, well, I could maybe do like 8. And I just told them I would change my package. So my packages start at 10, but they start at a full day package. And
Mhm.
so we're lowering that package like a lot to accommodate them. And I normally don't do things like that because
Mhm.
I am very passionate about my like day rate. I could tell you
Yeah.
about it, but I'm always willing to make someone a custom package. And so it is like way less hours than I'm used to shooting,
Yeah.
but they genuinely don't need it. It's like this intimate Burning Man wedding. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I was like, yeah, I can make something for you. I have that weekend free. But for most wedding clients, it starts at 10 at like a full day rate. And so it's up to 12 hours with a second shooter and film included. And
Mhm.
then from there, it's a day and a half and weekend. And so in the normal wedding space, you'll see a lot of like 6, 8, 10, 12 hour
Yeah.
package options. And then you'll see like maybe a rehearsal dinner add on. I feel like in maybe not even, I wouldn't even say luxury space, just in maybe destination space, luxury,
Yeah.
mid luxury, you'll see a lot of like all inclusive packages.
Yeah.
And I don't have a ton of friends that have like a day rate, but I think of it kind of like productions and sets. People have a day rate. And I'm like, this
Right.
is my day rate. You want me to get out of my house? This is what it is. And I want to shoot your whole wedding day. I don't want to shoot your 10-hour timeline in 6 hours because it's the only money you have. Because
Yeah.
then we're faking all these moments that aren't real
Yeah.
on your wedding day. And
Yeah.
so for me, it was like, I wanted to be more fulfilled with the increase I did book. And I didn't want to push 12-hour timelines into 9-hour packages because that's
Yeah.
what they chose, because it's what I showed. I think a lot of times people choose like the 8-hour package you have because they're like, well, I'm sure I won't need 10. You know, it's like they don't know what they don't
That's
know
true.
because
Yeah.
they've never gotten married. And so having a full day package, I actually get to shoot people's like full story and
Yeah.
they're not stressed. It makes their decision very easy to book me because they don't have to think about how many hours they need or do they
Mhm.
need a second shooter. It's like it's all included.
Yeah.
So
That is
yeah.
nice. And that kind of serves them better too. And especially with those like higher paying clients, they're likely working with a lot of different vendors too. So the easier that it is to book you is probably the easier it is for them in general, you know?
Yeah.
That's really
And
cool.
we don't go much lower often, but if someone needs something custom, that is where we might be like, okay, do you actually only need 6 hours or something? Like maybe it's just something unique, like that Burning
Yeah.
Man couple. And so, and when I say normal weddings, I can still shoot some normal weddings at that starting day rate. We just are a lot more of their budget than I am with
Hmm.
higher paying clients.
Yeah.
So,
So that
yeah,
makes sense.
I might
Okay.
be
So,
like 70% of their budget, whereas I'll be like 5% of the
yeah.
other client's budget.
So this kind of I sent all the questions to Summer before. So this is like a mix of something that I sent you versus also a mix of like whatever you just said too.
Sounds
That kind of
good.
made me think about it. But your style is super like nostalgic and editorial. And part of that I think is because you shoot film, right? But the other part of it I believe is probably like posing and how you're like guiding your clients throughout your time together too. How do you make those weddings that are not super high luxury where you are the majority of their budget so things don't look as beautiful surrounding you maybe, and of course they're always going to be beautiful because it's a wedding, but the difference in budget probably shows.
Yeah.
How do you make those also feel luxury and feel editorial through like your guiding and your posing?
I feel like in general, I share a lot of my clients. Like, I share a lot of people, and I've actually gotten like kind of dissed on that in the luxury space. They're like, you need to show more details. And I'm like, well, I love shooting people. Like, that's why I'm a wedding photographer. And I actually struggle with that some because I was like, well, I don't really want to post a photo of like flowers. Like
Yeah.
yeah, like they're cool, but like I'm passionate about portraiture. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
We're going to get good flower pics, but I don't want to post it. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah.
And so even with that, like I'm sharing all sorts of things that people probably wouldn't share in that space. And I think, yes, in some ways, it doesn't get me. Maybe it doesn't qualify me for as many of those weddings. But like I said, like I just want to shoot people that like align with
Yeah.
me, both artistically and emotionally.
Yeah.
And so if someone doesn't want to book me because I'm not showing like $50,000 floral budgets or whatever, that's fine. You know what I mean? I don't care. But yeah, so I feel like in a lot of ways, like I'm not showing only the glamorous stuff. I'm showing just like things that fulfill me as a creative, like
Yeah.
weird shots or flash shots or night photos or just, like things that inspire me. The last wedding we did that was very nice. I actually didn't have a ton of time for portraits with them, but we snuck them out right at sunset and we just got like 5 minutes. Like that was basically all
Mm.
I got. But the photos were still bomb. And I think you just have to look for like little vignettes of like when you can sneak in moments. And
Yeah.
so she had an outfit change for like an after party. We didn't have scheduled photos. It was just like, hold up, you look good. Get out the flash. And it was a way for
Yeah.
me to be able to get like an edgy editorial, like flash kind of high fashion photo in the blink of like a moment, And
Yeah.
so you have to be able to like just think fast. You got
Yeah.
this, think fast and don't let like the chaos consume you because that's where you like make your best work.
Yeah. I feel like your personality is so perfect for being a wedding photographer because you are like so spur of the moment that it is so great. I think sometimes photographers can get trapped in like feeling like everything needs to be perfect in order to get the perfect shot. And sometimes that's just not true. Sometimes the candid is better. And sometimes you pose and guide within that candid moment.
Mm-hmm.
It's not like, oh, they look crazy and that's going to be a great photo. No, of course it's not. But like the candid moments where you can guide and pose I think is important. So I love that like you just so naturally do that. It probably makes you so good at your job.
Some people, so when most people ask a wedding photographer, like why they enjoy shooting weddings, I think for a lot of, at least women specifically, it's like, I just love, and like the emotions of it. And I think that's so beautiful.
Right.
It's literally not me, which is fine. I think in the beginning I felt kind of weird because I was like, do I not like make sense in this industry? Oh no. And then at Nikon's camp, someone asked me, like, why do you like weddings? Because I was like basically the only wedding photographer invited to it. And I finally had the epiphany moment of I think I actually love the like chaos of it. Like I left
Mm.
elopements because I wanted to document things and I liked that's one of the reasons I like kind of the luxury spaces. I like the chaos of being there for like a whole weekend. Like most of our packages are multi-day weddings. Like
Yeah.
I like the chaos of literally like I'm normally there for at least 12 hours at every wedding. And for a lot of
Crazy.
photographers, they're like 12 hours. And I'm like, 12 hours is barely enough for these things. Um, and so I realized like I actually kind of like thrive in the chaos that is weddings. And what's
Yeah.
interesting is back in the day when I did elopements, it was because I had a lot of like sensory anxiety issues. And so I couldn't
Mm.
do like large crowds, lights, noises,
Yeah.
basically anything that is what I'm doing now. And I've grown a lot, medicated for some weddings. Like it was a long journey, but now I like thrive in like being at someone's after party till like 2 a.m. So it's been kind of cool of also almost like a
That's cool.
redemption story of something I like
Yeah.
didn't think I'd ever be able to do. I now really enjoy. And maybe it's because I didn't think I could do that. Like
Yeah.
it wasn't an option on my table because I never even thought, oh, would I want to do that? Because it wasn't something that was really an option.
Yeah.
So I have no idea, but I'm actually like really analytical. I can be spontaneous, but I'm actually very like kind of planned out. And
Yeah.
not in my life, but in my like business and
Yeah.
like how I shoot.
Yeah.
It's less like spur of the moment and more like always like running through my mind of how it's going to happen. And I think that's why I love like big weddings now. It's like this
Yeah.
big mission of this big day that you're like a part of making sure it happens. I don't know, you know?
Yeah, no, and again, I don't do a ton of weddings, and the weddings that I usually do, I have relationship with them, that sort of thing, and so it's very different than the kind of world that you're in. But I do some commercial work, and I work with local brands, and I actually think the reason why I like it is very similar to you in
Yeah.
that because it is very directing. Like most of the time for me, with the brands that I work with, because they're not like huge major brands, I'm also the director too, the creative director, and I'm also the person that's like, okay, I'm going to
Yeah.
make sure you're organized. So I'm coming up with a timeline of things. And like, I love that. Like, I love
Yes.
being the boss. I love to boss people around a little bit on set. Like, it's fun for me. So
Yes.
I think that's kind of cool hearing your reasoning and actually how that resonates with me, who's completely out of, the wedding industry in the same way that you are. But because for me, 12 hours is like, I'm not doing it. Like, I want to be in bed. Like,
Pregnant, it's kind of hard. It's very hard.
yeah.
It's a little hard pregnant, but it's
I
okay.
bet. Yeah.
Only
So
two
I
left.
I have an inflammatory disease, so I'm not pregnant, but I feel like my ankles feel pregnant all the time.
Yes.
So we'll see what happens when I am actually pregnant. I feel like it's going to be like a hot mess express over here. But all that to say, brand work is great because I most of the time don't work those long hours. I think the longest day that I've done for a brand was like 8 hours.
That's still a
And
long
so
day with a brand though.
yes, it is. And that's like very unusual, but it happens most of the time when the brand is coming to Charleston and they're like booking me for while they're here,
Mm.
versus like my local brands, like the brand. Okay, so I have a trip to Charlotte coming up with a brand. It's with like an apartment complex type thing that's like coming up in Charlotte. And I'm there with them for a week. And I'm making what you would make normally in a wedding kind of day, but I'm there with them for a week and I just work 2 hours a day.
Oh,
So
that's
it's
not
like
bad.
broken up into
Yeah.
different times where like I would just prefer that. And then I get to explore and like book other things while I'm in Charlotte because I might as well, but like it's very different. But I get to like organize and structure things the same way that you kind of do within the wedding world. So
Yeah.
that's really cool to hear.
I've been on like a full day fashion set once and I got home thinking I was going to like die. I was like, wow, that was exhausting.
Yeah, it can be a lot. It can be a
Because you have
lot,
to be
but
like
it's
full
fun.
blown creative mode the whole time. A lot of weddings, it is very like, okay, I'm doing this and then I'm doing this. And it's like,
That's true.
you're
Yeah.
not having to actually like create things, you're just documenting. And I
That
think
is true.
documenting is different than like being the person that's like, oh, we gotta like make this thing come. You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah. No, that is true. I don't know, I kind of prefer it. I kind of prefer the, like, "Let's make this thing,"
No,
That's
yes,
where our
yes.
brains maybe are a little bit different,
Well, no,
but
I love my engagement sessions. They're like 3 hours long. They're so fun. And they're
yeah.
like my creative outlet, you know?
Yeah, that makes
Yeah,
sense. Okay,
they're
this is
fun.
super random, but it made me think about it when you were saying the fashion work. You have a post on Instagram that's, like, people with lamps on their heads or
Oh,
lampshades?
that's me.
Nuh-uh, okay, I
Yeah.
haven't looked at it, I guess, enough, but I love that photo.
That was a while ago, actually. I used to do a lot of self-portraits, like,
Mhm.
and make videos of them, and that
Ooh.
was why I said, like, that was a lot of those were what grew my Instagram.
Yeah.
And I just enjoyed it. I think it's great for people to put themselves in front of the camera because I think it teaches you a lot, whether
Yeah.
it's like someone else taking photos of you or you taking the photos of yourself.
Yeah.
And so I would just do these like really weird shoots, like whenever I had free time, like once every 3 months, like not often, just like randomly, you know?
Yeah.
And I did one of me and my husband, and that's the one that like blew up for his song. It's the album cover of one of his
Oh,
songs.
that's cool.
And that one's like the light streak one, but the lampshade one was another one we did. And yeah, I just had what I used to have like a little vintage shop thing. So I had like wedding dresses and stuff. And
Fun.
um, so I just put a wedding dress on. I was like, this lampshade's cool. We should put it on our head. I don't know. I don't know where that concept
I
really came
love it
from,
though. I
but yeah,
love that photo. So I
yep,
love hearing the story behind it too.
that is me.
That is so funny.
Oh.
What's the song so that everybody can go listen to it?
Hmm. Jake's song from, you can also look at my pinned reels and that'll show you like
Oh, perfect.
what the video is, but it's like light streaks. I mean, for people not watching YouTube, I'm like doing the motion right now, but it's like those lamps that you used as a child, you know, the like, what were those called?
I have no idea what you're talking about. Are they like
Oh my
lightsabers?
gosh. No, like they almost look like they have like horse hair. Like it's like
Oh, yeah. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
gosh,
I
what are those
have no
called?
idea what those are called, but I know what you're talking about.
Oh, you'd like play with them as a child. Anyways,
Yeah,
took
and they're like
those.
neon-y colors and stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And his song is called I Want to Live by DNA Symphony. That's his solo project band that he has right now.
Okay.
And it's really fun, kind of spooky. It'd be a great like Halloween bop. Halloween's coming up kind of
Fun.
soon.
Yeah, it
It would be
is.
such a good Halloween song. So put on your Halloween playlist and go watch
Love
the
it.
reel and find him and follow him. But
I need Jake and Zach to hang out and make music together. That's what I need in my
yes,
life.
that'd be so fun.
We're going to
Come
set them
to
up as bros.
LA. You were
I
just in
literally
Orange County.
I
I
know. And we
know.
didn't meet up.
I
Sorry.
know. My car's AC is broken. So honestly, I don't know if I would have came to you anyways because I
You're
went
like,
to
no.
Orange County like 2 weeks ago and it was just me like I had to bring a change of clothes. It was just me like pouring
Aw.
sweat on a towel, driving to get dinner with my friend. It was horrible.
Oh my gosh.
So,
Well, imagine driving with no AC in Charleston. It
do
would
you
be
have no air conditioning?
no, I'm just,
Oh,
no, I'm living it up with the AC.
that's the one. The
But
one
it's so
thing
humid here. Like it's just so
that is
hot all
true.
the
That
time. I
is
think
true.
today, like with the heat index, it feels like 103, but it's like so you walk outside and you just sweat. Like it feels like you took a shower. So
Yeah,
I still do
last week
sessions
it
in
was
this heat.
hot, but I think today it's like not bad. I think it's like 79 or 80, which is not
Oh,
bad. You
yeah,
know?
no, that's not bad at all. I'm like, yeah,
Yeah.
I kind of wish that was my life right now.
I was on the phone with my mom. She was like, "It's 95. I'm going to the pool." I was like, "Oh, wow.
Dang.
Okay." But
I know I kind
yeah.
of wish I were at the pool, but
But yeah, I need to get the AC fixed, especially before the child comes. I think we've been traveling. So we were on the road for like a month, like as
oh
of
my
2 weeks
gosh.
ago. We moved
Okay.
into this new place. Talk about me being chaotic. I tell you I'm planned, and then I tell you about my chaotic life. Um, we moved here because of child. First trimester was horrible. Our last LA place,
Oh,
7 flights of stairs outside. It was so cute.
no.
So cute, but it was built into the hills. And so, yeah, there was like 7 flights of stairs. It was horrible. So we were like, we have to move. We moved, but then we went on the road for a month. So we got back from a month on the road with a horrible mattress on the floor
Oh my
and
gosh.
no furniture because, like I told you, we moved to a fully furnished apartment. And so when we moved, I'm now pregnant and we don't own any furniture.
Summer.
Oh,
Oh my gosh. I
and
could
our
never.
car's
I need you to
AC
know that. I
broke.
literally could never.
So we've been on Marketplace, like grinding. We now have a bed frame, a bed, a
Yes.
guest bed for the nursery, a dining room
Amazing.
table, got a TV console and a TV yesterday. I've never owned a TV in adulthood, so this is fun.
Proud, proud.
Um, I don't know why it was something like rode myself on. Like I don't own a TV. I don't know why. I don't know.
It's very like granola, you know?
I know. It was like, yeah, I've never owned a TV. I don't know why I thought I was cool for that. It's like Enneagram 4-ness or something. And we finally bought a TV and I got to watch TV yesterday. It was so fun. First time
Aw,
in so long.
that's so funny.
I know. The luxuries.
The luxuries. We have a
Oh,
TV and a TV console.
this is crazy. Yeah.
That is hilarious.
I don't know. We could have, they're not expensive. Like we could have owned a TV,
But
But
it
I
was a point
don't.
of pride for you. Like
It
it was
literally was. It literally
that is
was.
so that's like when people say they've never had like Chick-fil-A or never had Chipotle and they live near those things. It's like, no, you're doing that on purpose. Like I
No,
don't
yeah.
believe you. At this
You're
point, you
trying to
just
just be
like to say
cool.
that. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
But that is so funny. Okay,
Oh,
well, speaking of Jake, I do have a couple more questions for you.
yes.
You've kind of trained him up to be a part of your business, and he does not have a job, right, outside of your business.
Nope.
That is so fun. Okay, tell us a little bit about that. How do you balance like being professional and then also like having a personal life together?
Yeah. So when Jake and I met, we met at a wedding. He was the DJ, I was the photographer. I made like the first move. That's fine. And then
Love
our
it.
date lasted like 30 hours and we were inseparable.
Oh,
So we started dating like 4 months into dating. We moved in together. Um, and then maybe like 6 months later, I had him second shoot for me. So he was working at a recording studio. We met, and recording studios, it's not like the highest paying career. I mean, it's most
mm-hmm,
people's dream, so like they
mm-hmm.
don't care, you know what I mean? But he was working at a recording studio as an engineer, like producer, and I told him what I could give him to second shoot, and he was like, "Ooh, that's crazy," you know? And
He's like, okay.
I was like, "Dude, you should do it. I don't want to keep hiring like random people. Like,
Yeah.
you should second shoot." So it started with second shooting, and I had him just like I literally trained him like the night before to like second shoot for a wedding where they hadn't hired a second. This is back like before the all inclusive packages and stuff, and so we literally like, trained him like in the dark in our house, like
In the
there was
dark.
no like training like outside like practicing, and I was like, okay, let's do this wedding. And so he actually killed it. I think I can teach camera settings very well, so he killed
Yeah.
it. It was fine, and also it was just second and it wasn't paid, so like, you know.
We're good.
And
Yeah.
he was like, that wasn't that bad. Like, it's not his passion. His passion's music. But he was like, oh, that wasn't bad. And like, people really make that much just to like second shoot, you know? And so it started as second shooting as a way to just help us keep more money like in house, you know?
Yeah.
Because I mean, if I paid him, then it just paid us. I don't know. It was great to be able to
Yeah.
keep the money with us. And then eventually we kind of had this realization of, you know, maybe you should leave the studio because, I mean, he got a degree in audio engineering. He worked at the studio for a good while and he is very talented in it. But his dream is more as like an artist, like a rock
Yeah.
star. Like if you ask Jake, what do you want to do with your life? He'd be like, I want to be a rock star. Like his dream is to be like performing, like, but in the music world to just make a livable income. It was like he was having to work like 70 hours a week at the recording
Yeah.
studio and there was no time to like make music himself, you know?
Yeah.
So I was like, well, what if you work for me? And then hopefully that would give you more time for music, was
Yeah.
my thought process.
Yeah.
And I think we were a little blind to the fact of how much work my business actually takes to run. And I don't think he had as much time for music as we would have hoped this past like year and a half. But I think we're just now getting in the rhythm
Yeah.
of him being able to like spend a whole day doing music. But my business does take a lot to run because there's so much more than just shooting weddings.
Right.
Even Jake's like, oh my gosh, like it's
You were
crazy
doing all of
how much
this?
there is to do. And there's a lot
Yeah.
of things I just wasn't doing before him because there wasn't time, you know, and I
Yeah.
was taking
Yeah.
longer to deliver galleries and yeah. So yeah, he came on as like contracts and emails and second shooting in the beginning. And then now he does so much. Like sometimes I'm like, am I a face? Am I just a face? I'm kidding. But we will sit down at the desk and I will edit and he'll like answer emails and he'll just like tell me them and I can just keep editing and like tell him
Yeah.
my response if I need to. If it's an
That's
inquiry,
cool.
he answers them on his own. Maybe checks with me to like make sure I want to shoot it. But a lot of like my clients talk to him. They just don't know it. Um, but yeah, he manages my calendar, emails, he does the podcast audio, he like does some of the scheduling, he has just recently started to try and post on the preset Instagram account because
Ooh.
I let that go under the wayside. And he culls every wedding, so he second shoots and culls. I edit
That's
and,
awesome.
you know, do social media, do the coaching, do the podcast talking. Like there's still so much I do.
Yeah.
We both work extremely hard, but we recently have gotten into a much better rhythm of him being able to have that time for music, which has been really cool.
Mm-hmm.
Like yesterday, I got to work on music all day, which is really fun. But it was definitely hard to figure out like a flow because I just would work whenever I wanted to. So it was hard because the goal
Yeah.
was for him not to be working all the time. And
Yeah.
I work in increments kind of all throughout the day. I don't work all at once. So that was the hardest part, was managing time and him not feeling like he's only doing photography, which isn't what he's passionate about. You know what I mean?
Right. Right.
So recently it's been better, getting into a better flow of him being able to like do music and help. And that's been really cool. But it is kind of crazy. Like he will pick up sound gigs or like in like mixing engineering stuff on the side for
Yeah.
fun. But now he
Yeah.
doesn't have to do it like 70
It
hours a
makes
week.
it
Just
even
like,
more fun. Yeah.
yeah, he does it with clients he wants to, kind of like wedding photographers. Like you're always in a great place when you can turn down clients. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
When you have
Yeah.
enough inquiries to be able to say no to things. So he's not in the place where I mean, we don't even live near the studio anymore. The studio is in Tacoma, like back in Washington. And
Yeah.
so, yeah, he only accepts things he wants to take, which is so much more fulfilling for him.
Yeah.
And music's just such like an artful thing. I know like
Yeah.
photography is too, but I feel like music is like at another level of like your whole mind and body needing to be
Yeah.
completely in it. And yeah, he was mostly doing like rap, trap, like that was the scene for where we were living, and I don't feel like that was him, you know.
Yeah. Yeah.
So yeah, I'm excited. I think for anyone wanting to work with your significant other, it definitely comes with its challenges. I think for us, like just figuring out a schedule that works was the best. Like,
Mm-hmm.
and that took like I feel like until like the past couple weeks. Like I feel like it took like years. Like I
Yeah.
feel like
Yeah.
to nail that down. Yeah.
And then making sure that you have time too to also be just married and not be
Yes.
like just coworkers.
Just
I
working
think
all the
is
time.
important too. Yeah. Zach and I do a lot together. So I was curious just to hear like your thoughts on it because you guys work a little bit more on your business together. Zach like does some things like he edits the podcast for me, and stuff like that. But also we just do a lot together. Like we
Mm,
also, I don't know if you know this or not, but we also get to like lead a church together and stuff like that. So there's just like a ton that we do. But the biggest thing for us is also like making sure we're having weekly date nights that aren't work and we're not just like, talking all about people from the church or talking all about my clients or things that I want to do with like the education side of my business or with photo camp. Like no, 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 let's just be married. Let's
yeah.
just have fun together, that sort of thing. But it's like hard to like discipline your brain to stop dreaming or thinking about business stuff and just to be together.
Especially like because his dream isn't one that's like technically, it's not, this isn't bad in any way, shape, or form. I'm like, if I could bake enough where he could not work for me and he could just not work and just work on music,
Yeah.
like that would be so cool.
Yeah.
But especially because his isn't part of work, it is something that needs to occupy
True.
free time. And so it is hard sometimes to prioritize free time
Mm.
for like for us as well, you know?
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
I think we do really good at that part of things. I think that was one of the things we did do good at. We'll like go to a coffee shop and just like sit
Yeah.
there, and that's where we'll do our email powwow. And even though we're working, it's like a peaceful thing to do together. We're not just like slaving away at a desk by ourselves,
Yeah.
like locked in a room at a computer room. Like I know people
Yeah.
that do have like, we do have a 2-person desk, so like we do sit down at it sometimes, but I think we still do very good at like taking time off. I mean, just actually not working like a normal human
Yeah.
should. You know what I mean? I
Yeah.
wouldn't even say taking time off. Like you should stop working and then have
Just
dinner
having a life,
together.
actually. Yeah.
Yeah. We really enjoy like eating healthy. So I think that helps
Mm.
because we will normally eat together, or at least in our last place, that was like a common rhythm, was we'd eat breakfast and dinner together
Yeah.
and we'd be together at lunch. But the like dinner, you're probably not just talking about work. And so I think that helps like when you are someone that cooks. I feel like you're
Yeah.
also then going to have like scheduled dinner times.
Yeah,
And I think
that's
that's
true.
great. If you're someone who enjoys cooking, that's like a wonderful way to like unwind and
Yeah.
rest with your person.
I hate cooking.
Jake normally
So
does a
it's
lot of
so
our
funny.
cooking,
Zach does all the cooking.
but
I
at
do
least
nothing.
he's cooking and you guys can
Yeah,
eat
I
together.
do the dishes and we hang out while I do the dishes and then I'll hang out with him while he cooks. So it's
Yeah.
great. It's extra time together.
Oh no, I think I lost you. Ooh, I just lost you for a
Yeah, I
minute.
lost you for a
Okay,
second too.
good.
Okay, we're
I was
back.
like,
We're back. I was like, okay, I'm just gonna smile and look.
no,
That is so
yeah,
funny. Well, I know you obviously just talked a little bit about like your routine and stuff, but a lot of that is about to change with
I
motherhood,
know, I
which is so
know,
exciting. Like it's an exciting
crazy.
thing. But also, yeah, I'm sure it's crazy. Do you feel like not that anything can fully prepare you for everything that you're about to go through, but do you feel like um pregnancy itself has changed your workflow? And then how do you like anticipate your business just in general changing as you have the baby?
Yeah, I actually think weirdly, I've been like probably mentally healthier than I've ever been pregnant, which
Mm.
you read about this online and it's like, oh, you should have mood swings, all these things. I think I'm like weirdly better. I don't know.
You're like thriving in
Um,
it.
who knows? I was diagnosed with like hormone issues. So maybe literally the fact that
Mm.
like I'm not having my period. This could be
Mm.
TMI for some listeners, but
Nah, they're fine.
weirdly, I think I'm doing better, but it is really hard to adjust to working because some days I feel like I am dead. Like it just feels
Yeah.
like for me, one of my worst symptoms is like kind of extreme, like almost like allergy symptoms. Like it just feels like I've like the flu
Yeah.
randomly, like all the time. And so the first like trimester, I was just like out, man. Like it probably looked like I had like literally the flu like for like 12 weeks. It
Oh.
was horrible. And I wasn't throwing up, but I was just sick like constantly. Allergic to like everything. Like I didn't think I had bad allergies pre-pregnancy. During pregnancy, I felt like I was just allergic to life as it is.
Oh.
It kind of came back like the last 2 weeks, kind of went away, kind of came back. And so for me, the hardest part about balancing all of this and getting ready is the fact that like I can't really plan my days and I can't know how I'm going to feel because I don't decide that right now. Like
Yeah.
literally, that is not on me to know. And I'm in my second trimester now and they say you have energy. And the worst part, if anyone is pregnant and you're about to hit your second trimester, um, be careful because you get this energy, yeah. And then I go ham and I work for like 14 hours because I'm like, oh, I'm productive now. I can conquer the world. And then the next day I feel like I'm going to die. Like, it's
Hmm.
like just because I have the energy does not mean that I was supposed to like use it, you know? And
Yeah.
so I learned that lesson the hard way. And it is hard to find balance in work, especially working with your significant other when you have no
True.
idea if one day you're going to feel sick and then the next day you're going to feel okay. And learning a rhythm has been hard because basically the rhythm is I can work for like an hour or two and then I will have to like lay down. And then I can work
Yeah.
for like an hour or two and then I'll have to lay down. We bought a day bed for the nursery, which is where our desk is right now until it's like really close to pregnancy and we need to put a
Yeah.
crib there. And so I'm like, I'm about to be just laying down on this day bed while Jake like tells me emails, you know?
That's
Um,
smart though.
so yeah, I mean,
Being
we're
creative with it.
learning to accommodate. I don't know if I answered the real question. Like, am I ready? I have no idea. This wasn't something planned. And I, you might, someone can listen to some of my podcasts. I didn't know if I was gonna be a mom. Like, I didn't know. I'm a
Mm.
very strong entrepreneur. I didn't know if
Yeah.
that was something I'd ever choose to embark on, but I just kind of said, like, if I ever got pregnant, clearly not trying, like, we were very much so not trying in any way, shape, or form, then it's my sign that, like, I'm
Yeah.
supposed to become a mom and, like, figure this out. I'm like, this is my sign from God that I'm supposed to, like, learn
Yeah.
to embrace this and learn to sacrifice and figure it out. And, like, it's just my time to accept it. And so when it happened, I was like, oh, wow, I didn't think it'd be this soon. but,
But here we are.
but here we are. And I was hoping, I was still preparing because we had talked about potentially wanting kids one day. I was
Yeah.
preparing to try and have passive income and try and expand my business further than photography because when you only do physical labor for your income, aka photography, we forget that it's like literally a
You're
physical
on your
job.
feet. Yeah.
It is literally basically a labor job. When you do that, yeah, like pregnant or even once you have kids, like you can't be going as hard as you used to, or it just has to look a lot different. So I wanted to prepare to, if I ever had a child, not be traveling as much and not be shooting as much and not be working quite as much like outside of the home. And also, like, what if I got in a car wreck? All these things, like, I wanted the
Yeah.
business to be kind of sustainable in and of itself,
Hmm.
even outside of pregnancy and children. Like, I asked some people, I'm like, hey, if something bad happened in your life, say you broke a bone, say you ended up hospitalized, say a family member passed away, like, would your business survive you taking
Mm.
a few months off. And most people, they're like, oh, I never thought about that. And I'm like, you need to
Yeah.
think about that because you need that answer to be yes, you know? And so that was like the past year, 2 years of my life was trying to figure out how do I get that answer to be like a solid, solid yes. Like this thing
Yeah.
would be fine without me, basically. And
Yeah,
so
that's so good.
pregnancy
And
is
that's
such
why
a
it's also
test of
important
that.
to have a savings account and just throwing that out there. We should all have a
Mm-hmm.
savings account.
Yes.
And
Because,
especially if
yeah.
you're a woman and you don't know, like if you could be pregnant tomorrow, you want to make sure that you're ready for that too financially and your business can sustain itself.
Yeah. And even just that you can take time away from it and that it would still like all the systems you put in place would keep it alive. Like,
Yeah.
so yeah, sustainability is like really important. And so that was something I was on the journey of being very passionate about kind of
Mhm.
within the last year or two. And I didn't feel like many people were talking about it. They were all just like how to make 6 figures, how to like
Mm.
make a ton of money. And none of it was like how to build a sustainable life and how to build
Yeah.
like a life you truly enjoy that will support you for a long time, not just
Yeah.
a year or two. And so I was trying to just like kind of figure that on my own. And I'm like, well, this is the biggest test of that ever. Like getting pregnant and not being able to work for
Definitely.
like 4 months because since I'm a travel wedding photographer, we're not working from October until I give birth. And then I'll
Yeah.
probably have 2 more months off of like postpartum leave. So
Yeah.
yeah, it's crazy, man.
I'm so excited for you.
Yeah, it's wild.
It is. No, it's so wild and it's so crazy. And I'm sure even more so because it was unexpected. But like, you're so right. You're so meant to do this. Like, God has made you this baby's mom. And I'm just like, I'm genuinely so excited to get to see the way that, like, even
Yeah.
you are a photography educator, you get to be the person that you needed to tell you how to have a life within your business and like outside of your business and all of that kind of stuff. Like, that now gets to be your role, like
Yeah.
exactly what you felt like you
I
didn't
know.
have.
I'm like, one day I'm going to be like actually super qualified to teach on sustainability. Like I'm passionate about it now.
Yes.
So I like coaching people to like for them to think about it.
Yeah.
But I always say, I'm like, well, I would hope that I would have been doing something like this for like a decade before I tell someone like, this is what you should do. But honestly, no one's talking about it. So I'm like,
Yeah.
you know,
Paved the way.
someone's got to talk about it, you know?
Yeah. I love talking about it, but I'm also not a wedding photographer. So
I feel
so it's
I'm
different.
I feel like I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm on a podcast that isn't wedding photography. This is crazy.
It's so
You know what
fun,
I mean?
right? Welcome.
Yeah.
Welcome to the dark side.
Yes. Yes.
I love it. Okay, I have one more question for you. Every guest that I have on the podcast, I basically ask them, like, what question should I ask my next guest? So the
Mm.
last guest that I had happened to be Preston, which is kind of fun.
Oh.
So the last guest was Preston, and his question was, what was your high from this summer and what was your low from this summer? So we would love to know, Summer. What was your high and what was
Hmm.
your low from this summer?
Oh gosh. My high. I also feel like it's still summer because it just now started getting hot in LA. But let's see. My high. I feel like we've done so much I don't even know what we've done. Like this is the crazy part. I'm like, what have I done this summer?
And you're pregnant, so there's that too,
I know, pregnancy brain. What have
Yeah.
I done this summer? I literally don't even know. Let's see. This shouldn't take me so long to think, but I can't think past 2 weeks ago.
You went to the Nikon camp.
The Nikon camp was fun. That was really fun for business stuff. That
Mhm.
was that was a good time. There was a Nikon creator camp. I'm not even a Nikon shooter for everyone listening. I shoot Canon.
Nuh-uh,
But
I didn't know that.
yes,
That's
yes.
so cool that you got invited.
I know, I think it's their like sales, like I think it's their marketing mindset is, oh, if we bring
Yeah,
people who don't normally show Nikon cameras, it'll expose Nikon to
true.
more people, I guess. I don't know. It is
Sure.
kind of smart, I guess, when you think about it that way. But yeah, I shoot Canon. But yeah, Nikon camp business wise, really fun. I feel like I did something really fun like before that, and I just can't remember what I did.
That is
But
so funny.
I have no idea. My mom came to town, which is always
Oh,
fun.
that's fun.
I love my mom. So she visited LA for the first time, which is fun.
And she felt really safe.
And she felt really safe. We take little village walks. Yeah, baby. Found out the gender.
Oh, so
Um,
exciting. Are you sharing or no?
it's a girl. Yes.
Congrats. You're going to be the
Yes.
best girl mom.
At first, I thought I wanted a guy because sometimes I feel like I relate to men more. And now I'm like really excited for a girl. I've heard they're easier and it's all cute and I can get all these cute outfits.
Until they're teenagers, I
I
guess.
know they're easier in the beginning.
Yeah.
But yeah, so it's a girl. what else do we do? I feel like Jake and I had a fun birthday for my birthday. My birthday was July 6th.
Fun. Happy
So that
birthday.
was fun. And then my low, we had some family drama and when
Ooh,
we were visiting Washington. That would be
that is
weird. That's just
tea.
weird for me to reveal. But
Yeah, no,
honestly,
don't give us the tea,
no,
but
I'm
thank you
not
for
telling you
sharing. Yeah.
anything. I'm not telling you guys anything. I think that anything hard is extra hard pregnant.
Sure.
Yes. So, yeah, that happened.
Mm.
But,
Been there on the family drama. I'm like the queen of family drama.
we've worked past it, all is well. But yeah, definitely low of the decade. I'm kidding. Low of the summer. But yeah, and then in 2 or 3 weeks, we are going to Florida to go on vacation with my parents, which I think will be
Fun.
my high.
Where in
We're
Florida
just
are
going
you
to
going?
preemptively say that. We're going to like Panama City, like near 30A,
Nice.
but like not
Yeah.
30A.
Yeah.
I've been going there like before 30A was 30A, which is crazy.
I feel like that's a Georgia place to vacation because I
Yeah.
also grew up going there.
Yes. Yes. Before Rosemary Beach was even cool.
Yep. Yes.
Um,
That's
my
so funny.
uncle owns like a little cabin on a lake, like near the beach, but it's not really a lake you'd
Cool.
swim in, like Gator Lake,
Mm.
But it just feels like vacation. It feels
Yeah.
like, a little cabin vacation. And I just wanted Jake to experience that. And once we have a kid, it'd be a lot harder to like prioritize a trip like
Hmm.
that. And so, yeah, he's never been. And I haven't been since I was like 18. So I was like, we got to
Oh, that's
go
so fun.
to my family's vacation. So just me, him, my parents, maybe my grandma, but she's 90. So I don't think she's going to come, but we'll see.
Yeah.
We'll see. She wants to see the bump, but I don't
Yeah.
know if she's going to make it all the way to Florida.
That's so exciting, though.
But
I'm
yeah,
excited that you get to do that.
that'd be fun. Show him all my younger years and what we
Yeah.
did. Yes.
That's fun. Okay. What question should I ask my next guest
Do you know who your next guest is? Or I tell you a question without knowing who your next guest
without
is?
knowing?
Oh, well, that's fun that it was Preston, but then it was me. Okay.
Yeah.
What kind of person are they? Oh gosh.
Not telling you anything.
R.I.P. Maybe like what was the most inspiring part of their own career?
Ooh.
Yeah, like what was something inside of their own career that brought them the most joy?
Love it. I'm writing it down.
I would low-key hate if you asked me that, but I feel like that would be fun to hear someone say like, oh, there was this one thing that like changed my life and my career. You know what I mean? And I didn't
Love
say
it.
shoot because I don't know if you're having a photographer on, but it could be a shoot or whatever.
I will give you a
Who
hint that it is
knows?
not a photographer.
So that's perfect that I didn't say shoot then.
I love it. What's the most inspiring part of your career that's brought you the most joy? Is that right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Perfect.
That sounds a lot better than whatever
Okay.
I said.
No, I think that was what you said. I just wrote it down.
Hey, there we
I
go.
love it. Okay, Summer, I think we need to end out this episode. Oh my gosh, we've been talking for a long time. I just looked
This
at
is
the
what
time.
happens when you put two podcasters on one episode.
I know, honestly. Okay, so yeah, I actually want you to share about your podcast a little bit because we haven't really talked about that. But Summer has a podcast, guys, and you guys should totally go listen to it. So tell everyone where to find you on podcast stuff, but also just on social media.
Yeah, so on social media, it's summergrace.photo, or my educational Instagram is Summer Gray. What is that actually? I think it's Summer School, like XS. I don't know. I'll send Alex links or something.
Yeah, I'll put it in the show notes.
It's harder to say. Summergrace.photo, you can find everything from there. The podcast is called Summer School. And then I also have a coaching program called Summer School that runs fall and spring to like teach photographers how to run a successful business. So that's kind of like Summer School, the podcast is like your little teaser.
Yeah.
And then Summer School, the program is also a thing. We have summer camps sometimes in the summer.
I know. We never talked about this. We both have
camps.
I
know. We both have camps.
And you have summer camp. That's so fun.
And yeah, anything with my name is a thing probably. I have presets at Summer Grace Presets, which are fun as well. And yeah, connect with me online. Listen to the pod. The podcast is, I like to say that it'll branch even further than photography, but it's mostly photography right now. We've had some people outside of that on, which has been really fun, but a little bit of personal life, a little bit of photography. So if you want to get to know me, my husband, or me and what I think on things, or even me and guests, I've interviewed a lot of awesome people that are successful in their own fields. So yeah, go listen to it. It's a good time. And it airs every Tuesday.
Love it. Perfect.
Yes.
That's great. I'm Thursday. So listen, you get Cassidy's Monday, yours Tuesday, and then mine Thursday. It's
I
great.
need to find a Wednesday.
I know. Who's our Wednesday? Okay, guys. Well, you have been listening to Let's Create with Alex Blake. I'm your host, Alex Blake, and we have summer. And we love you guys so much. I'm so excited that you guys listened. But I need to end this episode out because we have just been chatting. So love you guys, and I will see you guys next Thursday. Bye.
Bye.
I just